With hunting season here now, I'm going to talk a little bit about mounting a scope and bore sighting, specifically getting your torque specs right, getting things leveled, because that's what's really going to make your shot consistent. You're not going to get anything weird happening. You're actually going to be on paper when you go out to the range to zero, and so it makes a lot of things better. Doing that, we're going to go ahead today and mount up this SIG Tango 6. It's the 5-30 by 56 to a Bergara B14 BMP. This one happens to be mine, so I love it. We've got a 20 MOA rail that's going on there. We're going to use a couple of bubble levels. We're going to use the Wheeler Fat Wrench, which is an inch-pound torque wrench. This thing is absolutely fantastic if you need to do anything precise on a firearm. This is something that you should definitely be using. And then to bore sight it, we're either going to use this optical bore sighter, which is just a cheap one from BSA, or a laser bore sighter. So let's go ahead and start with the scope base. Normally you're going to clean and prep the holes on the action. Make sure there's nothing in them, spray them out. I've already done that. And I've got the screws just set inside here. First, I'm just going to hand tighten these just to get everything aligned and threaded, making sure nothing is cross-threaded or anything like that. If you choose to use a little bit of Loctite on here, I would use blue Loctite and only a tiny, tiny bit. So after those are hand tightened, we can go ahead, throw on the inch-pound torque wrench. In this case, torque spec for these bases is 25 inch-pounds. We'll go ahead and get those snugged up here to the point where I can almost feel the wrench breaking loose. Get everything pretty even before I torque them all the way. So now that those are set, I can finish cranking on it and you'll hear this wrench click and break free. And that point is where you've hit the torque that you've dialed up to here, which is super, super easy, and it makes getting consistent torque on your rings, on your bases, on your action screws, whatever you're torquing down, really, really, really easy. So, boom, boom. So that's on there. In this case, I've already leveled the rifle in this vise. I made sure it was level at the muzzle brake on this thing, at the top of the action, and as well at the rear of the action, because I've got flat points on all of those. And so of course I can now drop that on my rail and I can still see that, yes, this is level, nothing strange happened, or the rail itself isn't torqued, something like that. So now we would be mounting up the actual scope. In this case, I've got the Tango 6 inside of an American Defense Manufacturing QD mount. So what I've done here is I've already taken this mount, put the scope in it, I've leveled the scope with the mount, and the way that I did that, and the way that I do a lot of scopes, is if I've got flat rings, I'll compare the rings themselves to the top of the turret. If your turret isn't flat, remove it and then use a bubble level across the top of your scope adjustment there. So now that this is level in the mount, I can actually just drop it on here and then use the QD levers on this side to mount that scope. If you're not using this, if you're using traditional rings that have top and bottoms, what you'll normally do is you'll get the scope in here, you will level it, check your eye relief, make sure eye relief is good, especially if you're not on a quick detach that you can just move around. And then you'll use inch-pound torque wrench to tighten your screws, and you're not going to want to do one side and then the other and front and back. You're actually going to alternate which screw you're tightening down as you go to keep the pressure even there. And the quickest way to tell that is when you're looking at the gap on either side of a scope ring, you want to keep that gap even on both sides. And so once you reach torque there, whatever the torque spec for your specific rings are, and you can get that from the manufacturer, then you're going to move on to bore sighting and everything.